Welcome back to the Miller Center's American Forum. I'm Doug Blackman. 25 years ago, when the United States' Cold War with the Soviet Union came to an abrupt halt, there was wide hope among Americans that our country would soon enter a kind of golden era. Our form of capitalism had triumphed and would be extended to hundreds of millions of people. New levels of prosperity would follow for all, vindicating our economic system. Peace dividends could be redirected to combating hunger and misery. The national budget would finally balance. The American presidents of the future, from whatever political parties, had the opportunity to engineer for the world a new hybrid of democracy and free enterprise. How differently things appear now. After the longest wars in our nation's history against elusive and indecipherable terrorists, thousands of deaths and casualties, trillions of dollars spent without clear benefit, the most bitter dissension and hostility between our political leaders, racial unrest, mass incarceration, and a series of presidents who bored us, shocked us with moral indiscretion, blundered unapologetically into war, and according to our guest today, disappointed us with empty rhetoric and incoherent execution. Aaron David Miller says we live in a post-great era in which it is unlikely that America will ever have another occupant of the White House with achievements on the scale of Washington, Lincoln, or FDR, and that, in fact, Americans don't even want another great president. Aaron Miller worked side by side with American presidents for the past 20 years, serving as an advisor to State Departments under Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, and both Bush administrations. He is a vice president and distinguished scholar at the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington. His most recent book is The End of Greatness: Why America Can't Have and Doesn't Want Another Great President. We're privileged to have an hour of your time.
Doug, it's a pleasure to be here at the Miller Center in particular.
Thank you. Let's start with the second President Bush, Bush 43. There was a president who 6 years ago was deeply unpopular at the end of his presidency and viewed widely as a poor president, a failed president in many respects. You say almost as much that in the book. Approval ratings at the end had been in the high 20s to the low 30s. Yet today, when Americans are asked in polls in 2014 about President Bush, almost 50% say he was a good president, give a strong approval rating. So was he a failure 6 years ago, but is he now a great president?
Let's start this way. Presidents, like fine wines, age with time. And the reality is, and they age well with time. The reality is they're much more popular once they leave the political fray, once they sever their relationships with the American people in contemporary political terms, and they're remembered in ways that are driven by many factors, including who succeeds them, which is critically important. Who comes before you and who comes after you is critically important to shaping your presidential reputation. There's no question about it. And any number of presidents, look at two of our greatest, Lincoln and FDR. Lincoln preceded by James Buchanan, and
Widely
FDR
viewed as the worst president ever.
and FDR preceded by Herbert Hoover. Presidents who follow great presidents are usually individuals for whom there are very low expectations. Harry Truman may have been an exception in this regard, even though he left office with one of the lowest approval ratings in the modern history of the presidency. Remembered over time as a much better president, given the fact of what happened to the presidency after Truman left. There was 8 good years of peace and prosperity with Eisenhower, and then we entered a very dramatic, the proverbial fall. Jack Kennedy's assassination, Lyndon Johnson, although transformative for 3 civil rights bills, Medicare, Medicaid. There was Vietnam, which dragged down his presidency. There was, of course, Richard Nixon, who Harry Truman said may have read the Constitution but really didn't understand it. And then you had Gerald Ford, a transitional president, Jimmy Carter, a one-term president, and then Morning in America again with Ronald Reagan. And who you succeed has a lot to do with how you ultimately are judged. But my argument here, and I would not include George W. Bush. He's not a failed president. I would not include George W. Bush as a great president, let alone an undeniably great president. The conceit of this book basically is driven by a very simple proposition. Greatness in the presidency is rare. Greatness in any dimension of the human enterprise is rare. We use the term great. I use the term great maybe 15 times a day. It was a great movie. She's a great tennis player. Have a great day. But we don't really understand what it is. We've emptied it. We've emptied the notion of greatness of any meaningful content, and we've transferred our appreciation for greatness from our political class, because we haven't seen it, to our entertainers, to our athletes, and to our actors. There we appreciate greatness. And there we can easily have relationships. We buy tickets, they may be expensive. These people never disappoint, or rarely disappoint. It is in our political class, however, that we can't appreciate greatness because in many respects it's gone. And it's gone because it is driven by three factors that have to align, like the sun, the moon, and the stars, in the right astrological formation. You need crisis. And by the way, not just a garden variety crisis. You need crisis of a nation encumbering character. You need character. You need the right individual with the right internal makeup and the right orientation publicly. And then you need capacity. Does this person actually know what they're doing? And can they deal with a cabinet, with Congress, with the media? Can they make Washington work? Those three, crisis, character, and capacity, are what has made our three undeniably greatest presidents great. Washington, Lincoln, and FDR. A half dozen others, maybe 5, including one of the favorites down here, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Teddy Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, arguably. I work at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, the living memorial to our 28th president, our only PhD president, and the only one buried in Washington, D.C., might be on the list. Harry Truman, clearly consequential. So you have the 3 undeniables, the 5 what I call close but no cigar presidents, and 3 others. I choose to identify Jack Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, and Ronald Reagan as exhibiting traces of greatness, real or perceived. But that's 11 presidents out of 44, but 43 different presidents, because Grover Cleveland was president twice in non-consecutive terms, so we won't count him twice. We've had 43 different presidents, 11 of whom, in my judgment, have been truly consequential. The point of the book is, and it's provocative, we don't want another great president because the founders created a political system which was designed to disaggregate power. They feared the royal governors, they feared the king, they may have feared the mob as well. So they created a system of an energetic executive, but an accountable one, but highly constrained. The only thing that liberates presidents and liberates the political system is nation-encumbering crisis. And again, when I talk about nation-encumbering crisis, I'm not even talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis, which lasted 12 days, or 9/11, which frankly might have been a moment to encourage the nation, but it turned quite the other way. I'm talking about a crisis that is relentless, inescapable, hot, in which everybody has to essentially participate. The three greatest presidents, Washington, Lincoln, and FDR, confronted the 3 greatest crises the nation faced, and they had the character and the capacity to go along with it. I don't want to risk threatening the nation again with such a crisis in order to test the proposition that a great man and one day woman will emerge to deal with the crisis. Forget great. Stop expecting these presidents to be a cross between Harrison Ford in Air Force One and Superman, so that you can allow them to be good. Good in the sense that they're, the meaning of the word good in the sense that they can be effective. They know what they're doing. Good in the sense that they remain within the limits of the law with great moral sensibility. And good in the sense that they understand themselves. They have emotional intelligence. They're not haunted or driven by demons or aspirations that force them into scandal or into self-created crises which causes overreach. Give me presidents like that, and maybe we can